You've probably heard a lot about setting goals and how setting goals is a really important thing to do. But should you set goals and how are you supposed to set goals? Well, we're going to talk about goal setting in this video. And at the end, we'll discuss values and how values really do change how you set a goal and what kind of goal you set. So stay tuned to the end so that you can learn how values affect the way that you set goals. Hey guys, my name is Michael Thompson, and I'm a youth pastor and a student. And on this channel, we discuss personal and professional development, specifically from a Christian perspective. And we're talking about goals today. And there's a common acronym used when dealing with goals, and that is SMART goals. This is how we're going to talk about goals. And each letter in SMART stands for a specific word. So S is specific, M is measurable, A is actionable, R is realistic, and T is time-based. So how are you supposed to set goals in the specific area? Well, you should remember this, that your goal needs to be well-defined. And I wrote down in all caps, write it down, because the things that you write down are 60 to 80% more likely to get done. So make sure that when you have a goal, you write it down. And your goal, it should not, if you want to be wealthy, for example, being wealthy itself, like that phrase, that should not be your goal. It should be a specific amount of money. And guys, remember, money doesn't give us happiness. But if the finances is an area that you really do care about, then set a specific amount of money, not just to be wealthy. Another idea is that you can go back and you can see the progress on your goal if you wrote it down. Okay, so that's why it's so important to write down a specific number or a specific way that you can accomplish a goal. Your goal needs to be specific, and it also needs to be measurable. Now, this is kind of similar to the illustration we just talked about with not just becoming wealthy, but having a certain amount of money. That certain amount of money is measurable, right? So it's specific, but also measurable. Also, like getting healthy, that's not really measurable. But if you could say, oh, I want to be able to run a 7-minute mile or run an 8-minute mile, or I want to get to this weight, you can measure that. So you can look at where you're at now and track your progress, and that's a huge factor when it comes to setting goals. When you're setting measurable goals, keep in mind that even if you're unsure of a long-term outcome or you're unsure of an exact long-term outcome, you can still set a short-term outcome that you can achieve. For example, you might say that you want to have a great family one day. Okay, that's a long-term outcome, but you don't know maybe how many kids you want to have, or you don't know specifics of where you want to live. But you do know that one thing that you can do right now is make sure that you're in a place spiritually that you need to be. So involved in church and some kind of a serving capacity at church would be a great way to set a short-term goal that would help lead to your long-term outcome. The same is true if you, for example, want to teach at the highest academic level. You might say, I just finished a bachelor's degree and I want to be able to teach in a college. Well, if you're going to teach at a college at the highest level, you're probably going to need a PhD or a doctoral type degree. And so you might not know exactly what you want to teach at the highest level. You just know you want to teach at the highest level. So in the meantime, the next step is do some kind of a master's degree. You see how the short term, you can still make sure that you set that goal, even though if you're not sure of the long term. So when you're setting measurable goals, don't let you being unsure of the long term keep you from setting some kind of a goal that's measurable in the short term. Okay, the A is actionable. Okay, SMART. Okay, we're at the letter A. This means that we should develop action steps to achieve our goals. For example, if you want to develop a YouTube channel, for example, and you want that to be your full-time job, that's not necessarily an actionable goal. But if you break it down into, I'm going to work on the YouTube channel for 5 hours a week, that's something that's actionable. You can do that this week and you can see, oh, did I do my goal? Did I not do my goal? Because it's actionable, okay? So specific, measurable, actionable. The R stands for realistic. So your goals, they should challenge and they should stretch you, but not so much that it causes you to give up on them. I've noticed this was a huge factor to some of the reading projects I did in school. Like they would give me a bunch of reading and I'd have this goal of reading this amount of pages, but I didn't break it down into a daily actionable step. And it was a little more than what was actually realistic in my brain. And that's a huge factor. So you don't want something to be too challenging where you can't accomplish it and it's unrealistic. An example of this realistic goal would be, if we're sticking with the YouTube channel, posting weekly. That takes a lot. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of systems, right? And that may not be realistic. So if you want to have a YouTube channel, then maybe a more realistic goal would be post once a month or post bi-weekly, especially as you learn the craft, because over time you get faster and faster at skills. But at the beginning of anything, you have a lot to learn. So that's a way of making that goal of having a YouTube channel more realistic, because you say, okay, I'm just going to do once a month for a year. And then after that year, I'll reevaluate. That's a great way to make a goal realistic. The last part of goal setting, SMART, is T, which is time-based. So you want goals that have a deadline. You've probably seen the magic of deadlines in your work or in your personal life. If your insurance, if you're not able to apply for insurance after a certain date, that deadline just has a magical way of making us view things a little more urgently. And any goal that doesn't have a time-based requirement is just a dream. And I want you to remember that, okay? A goal without a timeline is a dream. This is a huge factor to why some things at work you can accomplish way more, because there's more accountability and there's time deadlines. But we might want to do things in our personal life that we just never quite do because we don't set a timeline, we don't set a deadline for ourselves. So make sure that your goals are time-based, okay? So SMART goals: specific, actionable, realistic, and time-based. When you follow goals that way, you're going to be able to be efficient and you're going to be able to actually keep up with the goals that you set. And we talked about values at the beginning of the video. Now, this is a part of goal setting that doesn't get talked about a ton, but it's actually the most important factor. So your values definitely 100% affect the kind of goals that you set. And here's another problem. If you don't set goals that align with your values, you may achieve your goal, but then not accomplish something that you have a much higher value on. And I wrote down 4 different examples of this so that we can kind of work through this idea of how values are super important. So I wrote down, values. Our values are the biggest factor in setting goals, but most people, they don't think this way, and it causes issues. Here's example number 1. There's some jobs out there that they sound great, but it might cost you a lot of your family time. And if you want to be a great dad and you want to be a family guy, then to achieve the goal of a certain job level would cause you to violate a personal value of, man, I want to spend a lot of time with my family, because that certain job is going to cost you a lot of nights. There's a lot of traveling. And so if you set the goal of, I want this whatever job, but it costs you time with your family, then you're violating your values while achieving your goal. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure your values are aligned with your goals and vice versa. Here's your second example. If you're in college and you have a high value of personal relationships, but you also want to get straight A's, that one of those may cost you, right? And you'll see this a lot with students who they are frustrated that they don't have a lot of great friendships or relationships in college, but they are achieving their goal of getting straight A's. Now, I'm not saying that either one of those that you have to do, but I am saying that if you really want to have great personal relationships, that costs time. And great relationships are totally worth it to have, and that may cost you a certain GPA level. But if you decide, hey, I value academics exclusively, then getting straight A's, that's something that you can achieve. But if you really value relationships and you also set this really high academic goal, then if you achieve that goal, it may cost you to violate your values. Here's example number 3. You might not want to be a perfectionist, and you also want to have a 4.0, okay? So again, these are conflicting ideas. If you are a perfectionist, you don't turn projects in, you don't do anything until it's absolutely perfect. But if you also want to have a 4.0, that's a goal that you might set that violates the perfectionist thing, right? The same with how that could violate the relationship side of things. And here's your last example. If you value money more than anything else, then this may cause you to choose a certain job no matter what the cost is, because money is your highest priority. And like I've said this before, guys, money does not fulfill you. Money is just, it's something that you exchange for your time. And the better you get at a skill, the more money you can exchange for your time. But money in itself, if that's your goal to achieve, then you can't also have a high value in the other areas of life. And so that's why it's so important to make sure that you set your values and that your values align with your goals. Because if you have clearly defined values and you use those to inform your goals, when you achieve your goal, you'll be like, yes, man, that was worth it. And I am actually doing what I want to do. But some people, they set these high goals, or they set these goals in certain areas of their life without considering how that might affect their values. And then you'll achieve the goal, but you might find that, man, it was actually kind of empty because I achieved the goal, but it cost me something that I, looking back, really wouldn't want to pay. And you'll see this like with people in their careers. They'll get these great, fantastic jobs, make tons of money, and they look back on their family, and their family's in shambles because maybe they weren't paying attention to their values, or maybe they were, and it was an exchange that they were willing to make, but it's not worth it in the end. So set goals, set specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-based goals. Okay, SMART goals, that's a good way to remember. But also, do not set goals that don't align with your values. Make sure your values inform the goals that you set, so that when you achieve your goals, you're going to be able to look back and be excited and glad that you set that kind of goal, not really regretting it because you didn't think about your values. Hey guys, hope this was helpful. Again, we discuss personal, professional development and from a Christian perspective on this channel. We'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure you set some goals, set some SMART goals.